in Korea, we have like a high level of internet penetration. And so there are these two major platforms that where basically every adult in Korea are logged into. So we have a Kakao Talk. It's a messaging platform, and about like a whopping 97% of the nation's population, which means everybody who like even from like elementary school kids to adults are all logged into here. And we have a Naver, which is the most widely used search engine. It's more popular than Google. And these two platforms actually don't just provide messaging services or search engines. They also provide a number of other e-commerce or related things. They have a taxi hailing platform. They provide financial services. They provide news outlets. So if you want to check your news, you have to open one of the apps. They provide like games, comics, web novels, maps, social networks, blogs, messaging boards, and everything, including e-commerce. So this is the background where we're working in Korea. And also a unique factor in Korea is that the government, our legislation requires every person living in Korea to be registered under a resident registration number. So you need to have that number in order to get a mobile phone, and you need a mobile phone basically to log into these messaging apps. What happens with this high penetration of these platforms and the use of government mandatory use of this resident registration number is that consumers are hyper-connected, and they are also very vulnerable to like potential hacks, privacy issues, data protection issues, and such. So the platforms have these potential to collect information about the users because they're logged in their everyday lives. And at the same time, the platforms are also providing e-commerce services, and they can exploit the information extracted from the users through various channels of e-commerce. And the threat of identity theft or lax data security is very real. So in a sense, we've recognized as a consumer organization that data rights or online privacy issues in a very real sense, they are converging with consumer protection issues because it involves, in fact, the very same platforms that provide these services embedded in the everyday lives of Koreans. What Korean legislators and regulators have been doing in this space is that there are like two categories. So one is like providing a comprehensive ex-ante legislation to this space, where it's there are new bills, numerous new bills, and also a few pieces of legislation that we've seen during the past few years. So one is a law that we've seen is the establishment of the it's described as the world's first legislation targeted at prohibiting mandatory in-app payments by platforms. So Korea enacted the first law banning the mandatory in-app payments to prevent the platform operators, basically Google, Apple, from dominating the app market and abusing their status to force specific payment methods on the content providers. One of the things that the legislation does is it requires the platforms to enter into prior agreements with the operators, specifically on matters such as how the exposure rankings, how the search engines work according to the how the search algorithms work within the platform. And then there's an e-commerce legislation that specifically looks into the business to platform and the users, or platforms and the consumers, B2C legislation that is also being discussed. And there's a whopping actually 18 bills in this area. So it's, for example, one of the items that are discussed in this area is requiring the online platforms to provide some certain liability, responsibility for consumer damage occurring from these online transactions. So this is just a few of the items that are being discussed. And also from an anti-competition perspective, there's numerous antitrust investigations and enforcement actions that have been done in this space where, for example, the KFTC fined Google for abusing market dominance in the Android operating OS market in 2021. And also in 2020, the KFTC fined Naver, one of the major platforms, for manipulating the search algorithms. And so we see numerous enforcement actions coming from the anti-competition side